Welcome everyone. Now we will look at discrete time Fourier transform. First of all, we will go through an introduction, and this introduction will become clearer when we do the actual computation and the examples. So we can represent Fourier series coefficients as samples of an envelope, and we saw this in regard to going from the Fourier series to a continuous time Fourier transform also. And now we will go through the same logic for the discrete time Fourier series to discrete time Fourier transform. This envelope is determined by the behavior of the sequence over one period, but is not dependent on the specific value of the period. Now, as the period of the sequence increases, that means as when n is increasing, with the non-zero content in the period remaining the same, the Fourier series coefficients are samples of the same envelope function with increasingly finer spacing along the frequency axis. Specifically, 2 pi over n is the distance between two samples, where n is the period. Consequently, as the period approaches infinity, as n goes to infinity, this envelope function corresponds to a Fourier representation of the aperiodic signal corresponding to one period. This is then the Fourier transform of the aperiodic signal. Now, the discrete time Fourier transform developed, as we have just described, corresponds to a decomposition of an aperiodic signal as a linear combination of a continuum of complex exponentials. So the synthesis equation is then the limiting form of the Fourier series sum, specifically an integral. The analysis equation is the same one we used previously in obtaining the envelope of the Fourier series coefficients. So while there was a duality in the expression between the discrete time Fourier series analysis and synthesis equations, the duality is lost in the discrete time Fourier transform, since the synthesis equation is now an integral and the analysis equation is just a summation. This is a difference compared to the continuous time Fourier transform. Another important difference is that the discrete time Fourier transform is always a periodic function in frequency. Consequently, it's completely defined by its behavior over a frequency range from 0 to 2 pi, a range of 2 pi, in contrast to the continuous time Fourier transform, which extends over an infinite frequency range. Okay, so our approach is, as we have described before, construct the periodic signal x tilde n for which one period is xn. So what we do is we take some discrete time a signal, something like this, which is actually xn. We want to find the discrete time Fourier transform of this. And what we do is we construct x tilde n. This would be the same for this period. And then at every n, we repeat. And so on. So it would be like this. Now for this symbol, this signal, we have the symbol x tilde n. So these values are zeros. Okay. So xn, x tilde n is a periodic sequence. Therefore, it has a Fourier series. As the period of xn increases, as when this xn increases, these chunks of samples go further and further away from this sample here. Then the Fourier series of x tilde n approaches a Fourier transform of xn. So this is some similar concept that we used in developing the continuous time Fourier transform also from the continuous time Fourier series. Okay, so a pictorial view of what happens when capital N increases for the square wave signal. So n is 10 in this case. So when we increase n to 20, you will have samples closer and closer together. And when n is 40, this looks like that. So as you know, the reason is the gap between two samples is actually 2 pi over n. So as we increase n, the samples become closer and closer, and when n becomes very large, this becomes a continuum and it becomes this red envelope. So which is the discrete time Fourier transform. So you can see discrete time Fourier transform is a continuous function in frequency, but discrete time Fourier series, of course, is it's a Fourier series, so it's a collection of samples in frequency. Okay, so xn is aperiodic. So what we do is construct the periodic signal x tilde n, for which one period is xn. X tilde has a Fourier series. As the period of x tilde n increases, x tilde n approaches xn, and x tilde n as Fourier transform approaches the Fourier transform of xn. Okay, so now let's write this down properly. So first look at the discrete time Fourier series from the last lesson. So we can represent xn as a linear combination of e to the power of j k omega naught n's with ak, but we have to remember that k is only within this set of n numbers, consecutive numbers, where in capital N is a period. So how do we compute AK? AK is 1 over n, and the small n is in that a set of n numbers, consecutive numbers, xn times e to the power of minus jk omega naught n. So here omega naught is 2 pi over n. If xn is aperiodic, for the periodic signal x tilde n, as we have shown before, whose one period is xn, see now for x tilde n, whose one period is xn, so we write this. Since xn is equal to x tilde n over one period that includes from n minus 1 to n2, let's say, we can write this ak as 1 over n goes from minus n1 to n2. We can write xn instead of x tilde n because we are considering only that period. So during that period from minus n1 to n2, these two are the same. So therefore, if we use xn, we can do the summation from minus infinity to infinity. Okay. So let's define the function x e to the power of j omega equals n goes from minus infinity to infinity xn e to the power of minus j omega n. So you can see k omega naught, we usually write that as omega because when n goes to infinity, you know that 2 pi over n becomes extremely small. So we can represent that as a continuous variable. Also, this summation we can represent as an integral. So we will go through that justification. We see that the coefficients ak are proportional to the samples of x e to the power of j omega. That is, if we instead of omega, if we put k omega naught, we can get ak's, but we have to divide them by 1 over n, where omega naught is 2 pi over n is a spacing of samples in the frequency domain. And by combining this, so we can write x tilde n as k is in this sequence of numbers 1 over n x e to the power of jk omega naught e to the power of jk omega naught n. So we have replaced our ak's with this. Since 1 over n is omega naught over 2 pi, we can write 1 over 2 pi here and omega naught there instead of n. And then as n goes to infinity, this sum becomes an integral, and it becomes an integral over 2 pi. And we can write d omega. So we have the synthesis equation. So synthesis equation, xn is equal to 1 over 2 pi integral over 2 pi x e to the power of j omega e to the power of j omega n d omega. Analysis equation is x e to the power of j omega equals minus infinity to infinity xn e to the power of minus j omega n. So this is n. So you can see that the synthesis equation is an integral, but the analysis equation is a summation. So we write it like that. So this Fourier transform, this is the Fourier transform, has a real part and an imaginary part. So we can also write that in the polar form. So let's do an example. Obtain an expression for the discrete time Fourier transform of xn equals a in un, where the modulus of a is less than 1. Sketch the magnitude and the phase of x e to the power of j omega for a greater than 0, for example a equals 0.5, and a less than 0, for example a is equal to minus 0.5. Okay, to do this we can write n goes from minus infinity to infinity. So the formula for the discrete time Fourier transform, x e to the power of j omega is equal to a summation n goes from minus infinity to infinity xn e to the power of minus j omega n. Now we know that our signal xn is a n un. So we write that. So then we realize that un is this signal. These are zeros. So therefore we can write the limit here as 0. Summation n un e to the power of minus j omega n. N goes from minus infinity to infinity. This is equal to summation n goes from 0 to infinity a e to the power of minus j omega n. Now we have to do the summation formula for this. So this is like a geometric progression. So you will have 1 over 1 minus r, or 1 r squared, kind of a progression, the summation, when r is less than 1. So actually we have been given that a is less than 1, magnitude of a is less than 1. See, magnitude of a is less than 1. So is this e to the power of minus j omega less than 1? Yes, because we know that magnitude of e to the power of minus j omega is equal to 1. Okay, so therefore we can write this as 1 over 1 minus a e to the power of minus j omega, because we know that a is less than 1. Okay, then we can sketch this. I will not go through these sketches, but you can think about this. When a is greater than 0, that means when a is 0.5, we have 1 over 1 minus a e to the power of minus j omega. So when omega is equal to 0 and when a is equal to 0.5, you see you get 2 here. When omega is equal to pi, for example, you see you will get 1 over 1 minus 0.5 e to the power of minus j pi. So how do you get e to the power of minus j pi? It's cos pi minus j sine pi. So it's 1. So it's minus 1. So 1 over 1.5. So some value like that. Okay. So you can get the phase spectrum also like this, and if you like, you can get the modulus of that magnitude and the angle. These two can also represent the Fourier transform. Okay, now let's take this example, the rectangular pulse. So you can see when n is less than n1, it is 1. When n is greater than n1, it is 0. So you see I have taken n equals 2 here and plotted that. So let's find the discrete time Fourier transform x e to the power of j omega of this signal. So x e to the power of j omega is equal to summation n goes from minus infinity to infinity xn e to the power of minus j omega n, and then we have the summation n goes from minus n1 to n1, from here to there, 1 times e to the power of minus j omega n. So this is once again summation of a geometric series, but before that we'll do the substitution m equals n plus n1. Then we'll have the discrete time Fourier transform e to the power of j omega as summation 0 to 2n1 e to the power of minus j omega m minus n1. Then we can take the terms that are independent of a small n, that is e to the power of j omega n1 out, and then we'll have summation m goes from 0, so here m, to n1 e to the power of minus j omega m. So for this the summation is the 1 minus r n plus 1 divided by 1 minus r kind of a formula. So you'll have e to the power of j omega n1 1 minus e to the power of minus j omega to the power of 2n1, that's this limit, plus 1 divided by 1 minus e to the power of minus j omega. So this is a typical formulation that you get for discrete time square pulse. Also we saw this in the discrete time Fourier series computation for the discrete time square wave. So here we have something like 1 minus e to the power of minus j theta. So we represent that as e to the power of minus j theta over 2. Then you would have e to the power of j theta over 2 here, minus e to the power of minus j theta over 2. Now you can write this as 2j times e to the power of minus j theta over 2 sine theta over 2. Yes, so in order to do that, we'll take this expression and write this as e to the power of j omega n1, which is here, and take half of this angle out, e to the power of minus j omega. You have 2n1 plus 1 and divide that by 2. So then you will have e to the power of j omega 2n1 plus 1 divided by 2 over here, and minus e to the power of minus j omega 2n1 plus 1 divided by 2. So I will not write this 2j. Now for the denominator also you can do the same thing. E to the power of minus j omega over 2. Then you will have e to the power of j omega over 2 minus e to the power of minus j omega over 2. And when you consider these terms, they will cancel off, and then therefore you will have sine omega n1 plus half divided by sine omega over 2. Okay, so think about this is when omega is equal to 0, you will have 0 divided by 0 situation, and omega is equal to plus or minus 2 pi, plus or minus 4 pi, and so on. Also you will have the same situation, so you have to apply the L'Hopital rule to obtain the value at those places. So which I have not done. This is okay. So here are some plots for n equals 2. Also you can see at 0 you apply that and you get 5 over there when you apply that L'Hopital rule. Also you can see the repetition at every 2 pi. So you can see it is periodic. Also now this signal that we considered is real and even, right? So since it is real and even, the Fourier transform should also be real and even, as we have seen for other Fourier concepts. So what will happen if n is increased? So when n1 is equal to 3, not n1, so you will get more and more ripples over here, and when n1 is equal to 4, you get more and more ripples. Also these values will increase. Okay. Alright, now we want to do the Fourier transform for a periodic signal, as we have done for the continuous time of Fourier transform. So you know, for periodic signals we usually compute the discrete time Fourier series, but we want to have a uniform representation for periodic signals also using the discrete time Fourier transform. Let's see how we can do that. As in the continuous time case, discrete time periodic signals can be incorporated with the same framework of the discrete time Fourier transform by interpreting the transform of a periodic signal as an impulse train in the frequency domain. So let's understand this. So consider the signal xn equals e to the power j omega naught n. In continuous time, the Fourier transform of e to the power of j omega naught t can be interpreted as an impulse at omega equals omega naught. However, the discrete time Fourier transform must be periodic in omega with the period 2 pi, requiring impulse at omega naught plus or minus 2 pi, omega naught plus or minus 4 pi, and so on. So therefore, not only should we write an impulse over here at omega naught, but also we must write impulses at omega plus 2 pi, omega minus 2 pi, and so on. Yeah, so we can represent that as 2 pi times delta omega minus omega naught minus 2 pi n to show this periodicity. Okay, for a periodic sequence xn with period n and with the Fourier series representation xn equals k in that summation of those sequence of n numbers, consecutive numbers, ak e to the power of j k 2 pi over n. The Fourier transform is x e to the power of j omega summation k goes from infinity to infinity 2 pi ak delta omega minus 2 pi k over n. Okay, so remember we must multiply that ak's by 2 pi and locate impulses at those places. Okay, so let's consider this example. Consider the periodic signal xn cos omega naught n, so which is half e to the power of j omega naught n plus half e to the power of minus j omega naught n with omega naught equals 2 pi over 5, for example, in this case. So this is so you can write the Fourier series coefficients as minus omega naught and omega naught half. Okay, so now we want to write the Fourier transform for this. So if n is 5, okay, that's a Fourier series. So for context of discrete time Fourier transform, we must multiply by 2 pi and locate these impulses at every 2 pi interval. So therefore, if we consider from minus pi to pi, we will have this one. So I hope it is clear to you. So just have to take the Fourier series and make them impulses and multiply by 2 pi to get within minus pi to pi. And x e to the power of j omega repeats periodically with period 2 pi. You have to remember that. So if you sketch this, so x e to the power of j omega discrete time Fourier transform, omega is the axis. So we have to locate at minus omega naught an impulse of height pi, and at omega naught an impulse of height pi, and we must repeat that at every 2 pi, minus 2 pi. So this is minus 2 pi minus omega naught, this is minus 2 pi plus omega naught, height is pi. And at 2 pi also you have to locate these impulses. 2 pi plus omega naught, 2 pi minus omega naught, and this repeats because of the periodicity of this. That's the pictorial representation of that. Okay, now let's consider the discrete time counterpart of the periodic impulse train, which is xn equals k goes from minus infinity to infinity delta n minus kn. Find its discrete time Fourier transform. The Fourier series coefficients of this signal can be calculated from our previous knowledge. So n is within that sequence of numbers xn e to the power of minus jk 2 pi over n. So considering an interval from 0 to n minus 1, we have ak is equal to 1 over n. During that this is equal to, you get only one of these samples during that. So now we know the Fourier series coefficients now 1 over n. Now to get the Fourier transform, what we do is we multiply by 2 pi and locate impulses like this. Okay, now let's look at the properties of the discrete time Fourier transform briefly. So So periodicity, discrete time Fourier transform is always periodic in omega with period 2 pi. That means if xn has a discrete time Fourier transform x e to the power of j omega, then if you put omega plus 2 pi, you get the same thing, periodic. Linearity, x1 has the Fourier transform x capital X1, x2 has the Fourier transform capital X2, then you can linearly combine it like this. Then time shifting property, if you have n minus n naught as a signal, then you will have e to the power minus j omega n naught multiplying the discrete time Fourier transform. Also, if you have xn multiplied by e to the power j omega naught n, you will have x e to the power j omega minus omega naught. So let's take an example. The frequency response of an ideal low pass filter has a cutoff frequency omega c. Obtain an expression for the Fourier frequency response of the corresponding high pass filter. Cutoff frequency is pi minus omega c. So obtain an expression for the impulse response of this high pass filter in terms of the impulse response of the low pass filter. So in this case, what you want to notice is that if you take the low pass filter, it has minus omega c to omega c and 1 here. Let's consider this as h low pass e to the power of j omega, but we have to see that this has 2 pi repetition because it is periodic. Discrete time Fourier transform is periodic. So what we want to get is the high pass version of that. So when it is high pass, you know that it is at pi, it must be located. So high frequencies are around here, low frequencies are around here and here and here. So minus pi and pi. So this is pi minus omega naught, and this is minus pi plus omega naught, and so on. So this is our HLP. So you can see that's what we need to consider. So once again pictorially, HLP e to the power of j omega minus pi is the frequency response of the HLP e to the power of j omega shifted by 1/2 period. So this is okay. Since high frequencies in discrete time are concentrated near pi, so that's why we decided to locate these rectangles at pi and minus pi and at odd multiples of pi. The filter depicted in second figure is an ideal high pass filter with cutoff frequency pi minus omega c. So now from the previous theorem, from this one, we know that if there is a frequency shifting here, we can take that and write it here to get the time domain representation. So therefore we have e to the power of j pi n, see it's pi here, and then we know that e to the power of j pi n is minus 1 to the power of n. So what we see is to convert a low pass filter to high pass, we must multiply the impulse response by minus 1 to the power of n. That means in the impulse response we switch signs of every other sample. So conjugation and conjugate symmetry, xn has a Fourier transform x e to the power of j omega, x time or the conjugate. So if you have x4 plus 5j, complex conjugate of that is 4 minus 5j. That's the meaning of complex conjugate. So x star e to the power of minus j omega. So also if xn is real valued, its transform x e to the power of j omega is conjugate symmetry. That is, if xn is real, x e to the power of j omega is equal to x star e to the power of minus j omega. So we have seen this before, so we will not go into details again. Real part of x e to the power of j omega is an even function of omega, and imaginary part of x e to the power of j omega is an odd function of omega. The magnitude of x e to the power of j omega is an even function, and the phase angle is an odd function. So let's think about the time reversal. X minus n is x e to the power of minus j omega. Prove this time reversal property. So let xn be a signal with spectrum x e to the power j omega, and consider the transform y e to the power j omega of yn equals x minus n. So let's consider this. So yn, instead of yn we put x minus n. So do the variable transformation, and this is you can see we can write this as e to the power of minus j minus omega n. So therefore it is actually x e to the power of minus j omega. Time expansion. Now this is a little bit tricky, not the same thing as continuous time version of the Fourier transform. Because of the discrete nature of the time index of discrete time signals, the relation between the time and frequency scaling in discrete time takes on somewhat a different form from its continuous time counterpart. In continuous time, we had xat, Fourier transform 1 over modulus of y x j omega divided by a. However, if we try to define the signal xan, we run into difficulties if a is not an integer. Therefore, we cannot slow down the signal by choosing a less than 1. On the other hand, if we let a be an integer other than plus or minus 1, example, if we consider x2n, we do not merely speed up the original signal. That is, since xn can take only integer values, the signal x2n consists of even samples of xn alone. So let k be a positive integer, and let's define the signal x subscript within parenthesis kn as xn divided by k if n is a multiple of k. That means here you get an integer. Otherwise, you put 0. If xn is not a multiple of k, you put 0. So let's take this definition. So alright, so you have xn here as an example. If you take x3n, what do we do? So here when n is a multiple of 3, we take this sample from there. So for 0, no problem. For when n is equal to 1, so it's 1 over 3. It's not an integer, so you put 0 here. 2 over 3, not an integer, you put 0 here. So see, this is the definition when n is a multiple of k. So when n is 3, it's a multiple of k. So therefore you can take this one and put it over there. Okay. So now we want to find the Fourier transform of such a signal. So for that also we have special symbol x within parenthesis k e to the power of j omega equals n goes from minus infinity to infinity xk n e to the power of minus j omega n. So now we put xk rk instead of n e to the power of minus j omega r k. Furthermore, since xk rk is equal to xr, that means you can see this is a multiple of k. It's equal to xr of the original signal. Xk to the power of j omega is equal to r goes from minus infinity to infinity xr e to the power of minus j k omega r. So that shows actually it is e to the power of j k omega, not e to the power of j omega. So if you take xk in, its Fourier transform is x e to the power of j k omega. So let's pictorially see what this is. So you have x in here and its Fourier transform, and let's take this as actually you can see n1 is equal to 2. This is minus n1 and n1. So we remember from the previous example, this is the Fourier transform. And then if you take x subscript 2n, then we'll have to write x2 e to the power of j omega is actually x e to the power of 2 omega. So you can see you compress in the frequency axis. So similarly x3n has the Fourier transform this. Okay. Alright, now let's take an example. Find the discrete time Fourier transform of the signal xn shown in figure, expressing the signal in terms of simpler signals. So let's look at this. Now this is an aperiodic signal, remember. So we can write xn as yn. Take this as yn. So what we do, so we realize that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 samples are there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 samples we located here. Also these also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can use yn to express both these. So if you write y2n, you get these, and if you write 2y to n minus 1, you get this. Okay, then using that you would be able to write the discrete time Fourier transform of that signal. So we can write this xn as y2n minus plus 2y2 n minus 1. So I hope it is clear from the diagram. So we know that y e to the power of j omega is equal to e to the power of minus j2 omega because it is not centered like this. Sine 5 omega over 2 divided by sine omega over 2. So now we can write y2n's discrete time Fourier transform as e to the power of minus j4 omega multiply omega by 2 sine 5 omega divided by sine omega multiply omega by 2. See, by this theorem. So if you have k here, you multiply that by k. Okay, now we can write 2y2 n minus 1's Fourier transform. That would be e to the 2 e to the power of minus j4 plus 1 5 omega sine 5 omega divided by sine omega. So as a result, this signal's discrete time Fourier transform x e to the power of j omega turns out to be e to the power of minus j4 omega 1 plus e to the power of minus, take 4 omega out, e to the power of minus j4 omega 1 plus 2 e to the power of minus j omega times sine 5 omega divided by sine omega. Okay, so then there's a differentiation in frequency property. Nxn will have differentiate this in frequency and multiply by j. We can just take a quick proof. E to the power of j omega is equal to summation n goes from infinity to infinity xn e to the power of minus j omega n. Then differentiate that by with frequency, so you can see here because of this you get minus j n. So then Parseval's relation, summation xn squared modulus squared 1 over 2 pi integral over 2 pi the modulus of x e to the power of j omega squared d omega. Then the convolution property, a very important property. If xn, xn and yn are input, impulse response and output respective of an LTI system, so take this LTI system, it's hn and then input is xn and the output is yn. Then to generally compute yn, we have to carry out the convolution between the input and the impulse response of the system. Then if you take the discrete time Fourier transform of this, y e to the power of j omega is obviously, not obviously, actually from what we have seen before, is equal to x e to the power of j omega times h e to the power of j omega. As an example, consider LTI system with impulse response. This one, it just delays. Obtain the output yn for an input xn. So the frequency response would be x e to the power of j omega equals summation n goes from minus infinity to infinity delta n minus n naught to the power of minus j omega n when you compute the discrete time Fourier transform of hn. So then you have e to the power of minus j omega n naught. Thus, if any input xn with Fourier transform x e to the power of j omega, in the Fourier transform of the output would be x e to the power of j omega would be e to the power of minus j omega n naught x e to the power of j omega, which is also consistent with the time shifting property. So we can consider another example. Here we have an impulse response alpha n un, modulus of alpha is less than 1, and suppose that the input to the system is xn, beta n un, modulus of beta is less than 1, obtaining the output yn for alpha not equals to beta and alpha equals to beta. Okay, so we have h e to the power of j omega from the previous example that we did. We did for a n un, a less than modulus of a less than 1. We obtain the discrete time Fourier transform, which is 1 over 1 minus a e to the power of minus j omega, so we put alpha there. And for x also we have the discrete time Fourier transform, 1 over 1 minus beta e to the power of minus j omega. That's okay. Then if alpha is equal to beta, then y would be the multiplication of the Fourier transforms of the impulse response and the input signal. And then now we have to try to get the inverse Fourier transform of this. For that, we have to consider y e to the power of j omega as j over alpha e to the power of j omega d by d omega 1 over 1 minus alpha e to the power of minus j omega. So we know that alpha n un has the discrete time Fourier transform 1 over 1 minus alpha e to the power minus j omega, and if we consider n alpha n un, so we have to get this from properties. I did not go through the table of properties. We can consider properties tables to get this. Okay. To account for this, we have to use the time shifting property, and therefore we have n plus 1 alpha to the power of n plus 1 u n plus 1 has the discrete time Fourier transform j e to the power of j omega d by d omega 1 over 1 minus alpha e to the power minus j omega. So therefore yn would be n plus 1 alpha to the power of n u n plus 1. Okay, then the case is therefore when alpha is not equal to beta. So y e to the power of j omega is equal to 1 over 1 minus alpha e to the power of j omega times 1 minus beta e to the power minus j omega. So we have to use partial fractions. So I will not spend time in obtaining partial fractions, but write this as alpha minus beta and minus beta, alpha minus beta, and this okay. Then we can write yn as alpha minus beta alpha to the power of n un minus beta alpha minus beta b to the power of n un. Okay. So then there's a multiplication property when two signals are multiplied, when yn is equal to product of this, and then you have the so-called periodic convolution, which I do not cover in this lesson. So this is called the periodic, we need the periodic convolution for this. So in summary, we have studied for the periodic signals in their continuous time. So Fourier series, and then the signal can be expressed as a summation of harmonically related exponentials. And for a periodic case, we have the Fourier transform x j omega, and that is computed as xt to the power minus j omega t dt, and xt is expressed as an integral or a summation of infinitesimally close exponentials e to the power of j omega t's. And in discrete time, we looked at the discrete time Fourier series before, and to compute the Fourier series coefficients, you have 1 over n and summation over that n sequential numbers xn e to the power of minus jk 2 pi over n, and xn can be synthesized k also within that sequence, ak e to the power of jk 2 pi over n. And then we looked at the discrete time Fourier transform today, and then we wrote e to the power of j omega is equal to summation n goes from minus infinity to infinity xn e to the power of minus j omega n. Xn can be synthesized 1 over 2 pi integral over 2 pi x e to the power of j omega e to the power of j omega n d omega. So no duality between these two. There is duality between these two. There is duality, no duality between these two. But there is a duality when we consider these together. If you take a this is a continuous time domain signal. If you take a frequency domain signal that looks like that time domain signal, its equivalent time domain representation is this. You have to go through that cycle, I think. Okay, so a couple of more questions to answer. So discrete time Fourier transform e to the power of j omega generalizes to the z transform. Z is equal to r e to the power of j omega. R is a positive number. So when r is equal to 1, you get x e to the power of j omega. So this is the reason why for the discrete time Fourier transform we write as e to the power of j x e to the power of j omega, rather than for the continuous time Fourier transform x j omega. For the continuous time Fourier transform, we have the generalization Laplace transform where s is equal to sigma plus j omega. So when sigma is equal to 0, you get the continuous time Fourier transform. Okay. Then we studied discrete time Fourier transform, and then so you can see in the discrete time Fourier transform, this is periodic continuous time signal, and this is a periodic sequence xn. When you want to use a computer to compute this, you have the discrete Fourier transform. Now when you think about it, discrete Fourier transform, discrete time Fourier transform as we studied today is a discrete time signal. I'm sorry. So we take a discrete time signal xn and compute its discrete time Fourier transform, which is a continuous time signal in frequency. But in computers we cannot compute these continuous time signals, so therefore we have to use this also as a sequence. Also, we notice that this is periodic. So if we take one period and express that as a sample of this, sample version in frequency domain of the discrete time Fourier transform output, we get the discrete Fourier transform. And then the fast implementation of that is the fast Fourier transform. So you will learn this under digital signal processing later. So in summary, what we learned today is the discrete time Fourier transform for which completes the Fourier analysis of continuous time and discrete time signals. Thank you.